The morning sun cast long shadows across the rocky terrain of Afghanistan's mountainous border region. Staff Sergeant Marcus Chen adjusted his scope for the third time in 10 minutes, his weathered hands steady despite the tension that had been building in his chest since dawn. The observation post overlooked a valley where intelligence reports indicated a high-value target would appear within the next few hours. Chen had been leading sniper teams for over 8 years, through 3 deployments across different theaters of operation. His team had earned a reputation for precision and reliability that commanders across the region respected. Today, however, something felt different. The weight of the mission pressed heavier than usual on his shoulders. "Contact approaching from the east," whispered Corporal Jake Morrison, their spotter. His eye pressed against powerful binoculars. Morrison was young but sharp, with an ability to read terrain and wind patterns that impressed even veteran snipers. 2 vehicles. Civilian markings. The third member of their team, Sergeant First Class Elena Vasquez, lay motionless 30 meters to their right, her own rifle positioned behind a carefully constructed hide. Vasquez had joined their unit 6 months ago, transferred from a specialized reconnaissance unit where she had earned commendations that her previous commanders rarely discussed in detail. Her personnel file contained several redacted sections that suggested operations far beyond standard military engagement. Chen had initially been skeptical about having Vasquez on the team, not because of her gender, but because of her unconventional methods and her tendency to suggest solutions that seemed to defy standard tactical doctrine. However, her results had been undeniable. In their previous missions together, she had consistently made shots that other snipers deemed difficult, often from positions that seemed tactically disadvantageous. The valley below stretched for nearly 2 kilometers, with the suspected target location positioned at the far end near a small compound of mud brick buildings. Local intelligence assets had confirmed that their target, a bomb maker responsible for several attacks against coalition forces, would be meeting with weapons suppliers sometime before noon. "Range to target building?" Chen asked quietly into his radio. Morrison consulted his laser rangefinder and wind meter. 2,137 meters. Wind variable, currently northeast at 8 knots, but shifting patterns suggest instability. Chen felt his stomach tighten. 2,100 meters was approaching the absolute limit of their weapon system under ideal conditions. The environmental factors made the shot exponentially more difficult. The wind patterns in this particular valley were notorious for sudden shifts caused by the surrounding mountain peaks, creating unpredictable air currents that could deflect even the most carefully aimed bullet. "Target acquired." Vasquez's voice came through their communication system, calm and steady. "Male, approximately 40 years of age, matches the profile photograph. He's positioned near the northwest corner of the main building." Chen swung his scope toward the compound and located the figure Vasquez had identified. The man stood partially concealed behind a low wall, occasionally stepping into view as he gestured to unseen companions. The partial concealment meant that any shot would require precise timing to catch the target during his brief moments of exposure. "Wind conditions are deteriorating," Morrison reported. "Multiple air currents creating interference patterns. Current calculations show a 73% deviation probability for a shot at this range." The mathematics of long-range shooting became exponentially more complex beyond 1,500 meters. Every variable, from air density and temperature to the rotation of the Earth itself, affected bullet trajectory. At their current distance, a bullet would be in flight for nearly 3 seconds, time enough for multiple wind shifts to alter its path significantly. Chen studied the tactical situation through his scope. The target's position provided him with excellent cover from most angles, with only a narrow window of opportunity when he moved to communicate with others in the compound. The shot would require not only exceptional marksmanship, but also precise timing and favorable environmental conditions. "Recommend we request closer observation post authorization," Morrison suggested. Standard doctrine calls for maximum engagement range of 1,800 meters under these conditions. Chen considered the recommendation. Moving to a closer position would require several hours of movement across exposed terrain, during which time their target might disappear entirely. Intelligence indicated that the meeting was scheduled for today only, with the bomb maker expected to leave the area immediately afterward. Negative on repositioning, Chen decided. Window of opportunity too narrow. We maintain current positions and monitor for improved conditions. Vasquez remained silent, her attention focused entirely on the target area. Chen had learned to recognize her periods of intense concentration, during which she seemed to process environmental data in ways that exceeded standard training protocols. She had once explained that successful long-range shooting required understanding the entire environment as a single system, rather than analyzing individual variables separately. The target appeared again, stepping from behind cover to examine something handed to him by another figure. Chen calculated the exposure time at approximately 4 seconds before the target would return to concealment. Even under ideal conditions, 4 seconds provided minimal margin for error at such extreme range. Shot timing window identified, Chen announced. Target exposure pattern suggests regular intervals of approximately 8 minutes between appearances. Next opportunity in 6 minutes, 40 seconds. Morrison began calculating updated wind and environmental readings, feeding data into his ballistic computer. The device processed multiple variables to generate firing solutions, but at extreme ranges, environmental unpredictability made even computer-assisted calculations uncertain. Ballistic solution shows acceptable probability only during wind lull periods, Morrison reported. Current patterns suggest next stable air conditions in approximately 12 minutes. The timing presented a tactical dilemma. The target's exposure pattern would not align with optimal environmental conditions, requiring a choice between accepting unfavorable shooting conditions or risking the complete loss of opportunity. Vasquez adjusted her position slightly, her movements economical and precise. Request permission to attempt the shot during next exposure window, she said quietly. Chen felt surprise at her confidence. The shot would challenge even the most experienced marksman under significantly better conditions. Negative, Sergeant. Environmental factors exceed acceptable parameters. Understood, Vasquez replied. But her tone suggested disagreement with the assessment. The target appeared on schedule, spending approximately 4 seconds in the open before returning to cover. Chen watched through his scope as the figure moved with casual confidence, unaware of the observation from across the valley. The distance and environmental conditions had created a situation where the target remained effectively safe, despite being under direct surveillance. Pattern confirmed, Morrison observed. Exposure duration consistent, timing intervals regular. Target appears confident in his security situation. Chen considered their options. The mission objectives specified eliminating the target before he could complete his meeting and disappear into the extensive cave networks that honeycombed the surrounding mountains. Failure to engage today would likely mean losing the opportunity entirely. Updated environmental readings show continuing instability, Morrison reported. Wind patterns becoming more erratic as surface heating increases. Morning thermal effects were beginning to create additional air current disturbances as the sun heated different terrain features at varying rates. The phenomena would continue to worsen throughout the day, making long-range shooting increasingly difficult. Vasquez made minute adjustments to her rifle position, her movements suggesting preparation despite the apparent impossibility of the shot. Chen had observed her pre-shot routines in previous engagements and recognized the signs of her mental preparation process. Sergeant Vasquez, confirm your assessment of current shot probability, Chen ordered. Environmental conditions present significant challenges, she replied. However, shot remains feasible given proper technique and timing coordination. Chen felt incredulous at her confidence. The combination of extreme range, environmental instability, and limited target exposure created conditions that textbook doctrine categorized as prohibitive for engagement. Explain your reasoning. Traditional ballistic calculations assume linear environmental effects, Vasquez said. Actual conditions create temporary stability windows within apparent chaos. Pattern recognition indicates such window approaching in approximately 47 seconds. Morrison checked his instruments frantically. Negative on environmental improvement. All readings show continuing deterioration of shooting conditions. Chen watched Vasquez prepare her rifle with movements that seemed almost ritualistic in their precision. Her breathing had shifted to a pattern he recognized from previous engagements, a controlled rhythm that seemed to align her entirely with her weapon and target. The target appeared again, following his established pattern. Chen observed through his scope as the figure moved with the same casual confidence, spending his customary 4 seconds exposed before returning to cover. Next exposure in 7 minutes 20 seconds, Morrison announced. Recommend continuing to monitor for environmental improvement. Vasquez's voice came across the radio with unusual intensity. Request immediate clearance for engagement. Optimal conditions developing now. Chen scanned the valley with his binoculars, seeing no indication of the environmental improvements Vasquez claimed to detect. The wind meters showed continuing instability, and visual indicators suggested worsening rather than improving conditions. Negative clearance, Chen replied. Conditions remain prohibitive. Understood, Vasquez said, but her tone carried a note Chen had never heard from her before, something between disappointment and determination. The tactical situation continued to deteriorate as thermal effects increased surface heating throughout the valley. Morrison's instruments registered increasingly erratic environmental patterns that made precise ballistic calculations impossible. Chen felt the weight of command responsibility pressing on his decision. The mission required eliminating the target, but attempting an impossible shot risked not only failure, but potentially compromising their position if the bullet impact revealed their location to hostile forces. Target movement pattern adjustment, Morrison announced. Subject now spending additional time in covered positions between exposures. The observation suggested that their window of opportunity was narrowing beyond the environmental challenges. If the target became more security-conscious, future exposure opportunities might disappear entirely. Vasquez remained motionless behind her rifle, her concentration absolute, despite the apparent hopelessness of achieving a successful engagement. Chen had learned to respect her tactical instincts even when they contradicted conventional wisdom. But the current situation pushed beyond reasonable risk assessment. The morning progressed with continued observation and deteriorating conditions. Each target exposure provided Chen with a clearer understanding of why standard doctrine considered such engagements impossible. The combination of distance, environmental factors, and timing constraints created a tactical puzzle with no apparent solution. Morrison continued monitoring environmental conditions with growing pessimism. Thermal effects now creating multiple air current layers, ballistic trajectory calculations becoming meaningless under current conditions. Chen felt the mission slipping away as conditions worsened rather than improved. The target continued his regular appearances, but each exposure only emphasized the impossibility of achieving accurate fire at such extreme range under deteriorating environmental conditions. Time remaining for mission window? Chen asked. Morrison checked his watch against the intelligence timeline. Approximately 90 minutes before target expected to depart area permanently. The timeline created additional pressure on an already impossible situation. Chen faced a choice between accepting mission failure or authorizing an engagement attempt under conditions that virtually guaranteed failure and potential compromise of their position. Vasquez finally spoke, her voice carrying quiet confidence despite the tactical situation. Requesting permission to demonstrate shot feasibility through alternative methodology. Chen felt confused by her request. Explain alternative methodology. Traditional ballistic calculation assumes sequential environmental effect processing, she replied. Alternative approach involves intuitive integration of environmental pattern recognition with timing coordination. Morrison looked skeptical of any non-computational approach to such extreme-range shooting. Sergeant, the mathematical variables exceed human processing capability under these conditions. Mathematics provides foundation, Vasquez agreed. However, environmental pattern integration requires different cognitive processing approach than sequential calculation methodology. Chen found himself facing a decision that would define not only the mission outcome, but potentially the careers and lives of his team members. The shot Vasquez proposed attempting defied both training and mathematical analysis, yet her previous performance suggested capabilities beyond standard doctrine. Chen stared at Vasquez through his binoculars, trying to read her expression behind the rifle scope. Her breathing had shifted into a pattern he had only seen during her most challenging previous engagements, a rhythm that seemed to synchronize with environmental fluctuations in ways that defied explanation. Despite months of working together, certain aspects of her methodology remained mysteries that she either could not or would not fully explain. Sergeant Vasquez, provide specific details on your proposed engagement technique, Chen ordered, hoping to understand what she planned that differed from standard long-range shooting protocols. Environmental chaos contains underlying mathematical patterns, she replied without moving from her shooting position. Pattern recognition allows prediction of momentary stability windows within apparent randomness. These windows provide brief periods where traditional ballistic calculations become temporarily valid. Morrison shook his head while monitoring his instruments. Sergeant, environmental sensors show no indication of pattern stabilization. Conditions continue deteriorating across all measurement categories. Chen watched Vasquez make microscopic adjustments to her rifle position, movements so subtle they seemed almost unconscious. Her technique during previous missions had impressed him with its precision, but the current situation exceeded anything they had previously attempted together. The target appeared again according to his established schedule, spending his customary 4 seconds exposed before disappearing behind cover. Chen timed the exposure carefully, noting that their window remained consistent despite the tactical challenges. 6 minutes to next exposure, Morrison announced. Thermal effects creating additional atmospheric disturbance layers. Shot probability calculations now showing less than 15% success likelihood. Chen felt the weight of command decision pressing heavier as time passed. Mission success required eliminating the target today, but authorizing an impossible shot risked not only failure, but potential compromise of their entire operation if the bullet impact revealed their position. Vasquez spoke quietly into her radio. Request authorization for final equipment adjustments before next exposure window. Granted, Chen replied, curious about what modifications she might make that could improve their tactical situation. Instead of adjusting her rifle or scope, Vasquez closed her eyes and remained motionless for nearly 30 seconds. Her breathing deepened into a pattern that seemed to match environmental fluctuations Chen could barely detect. When she reopened her eyes, her entire demeanor had shifted into a state of concentration he had never witnessed before. Environmental pattern analysis complete, she announced. Optimal engagement window identified for next target exposure plus 37 seconds. Morrison checked his environmental monitoring equipment frantically. Negative on environmental improvement prediction. All indicators show continuing instability throughout projected time frame. Chen found himself caught between trusting his spotter's instruments and believing in Vasquez's unconventional analytical methods. Her previous successes suggested capabilities beyond standard training, but the current situation pushed beyond reasonable tactical assessment. Vasquez, Explain how you identified environmental improvement that instrumentation cannot detect, Chen demanded. Environmental monitoring equipment measures discrete variable changes sequentially, she replied. Human pattern recognition processes multiple variables simultaneously as integrated system. Integration reveals stability patterns invisible to sequential measurement. Chen felt skeptical of any methodology that claimed superiority over precision instruments designed specifically for ballistic calculation support. However, Vasquez's previous performance suggested her techniques produced results that justified consideration, despite their unconventional nature. The target appeared on schedule, following his established pattern with mechanical precision. Chen watched through his scope as the figure moved with continued confidence in his security, unaware of the deadly attention focused on him from across the valley. 4 minutes to next exposure, Morrison reported. Environmental conditions showing further deterioration. Recommend abandoning engagement attempt and reporting target location for air support consideration. Chen considered the air support option. Calling for aircraft would guarantee target elimination, but would also compromise their observation post and potentially alert other hostile forces in the area to coalition surveillance capabilities. Vasquez made final adjustments to her rifle with movements that seemed choreographed rather than mechanical. Her preparation ritual continued with checking wind direction indicators, adjusting scope settings, and positioning her body with precise attention to details Chen had never observed other snipers consider. 2 minutes to exposure window, Morrison announced nervously. Environmental readings continue showing prohibitive conditions for precision shooting. Chen faced the moment of decision he had been dreading since morning. Authorizing the shot under current conditions violated tactical doctrine and risked mission failure. Denying the attempt meant accepting defeat without engaging their primary target. Vasquez, final confirmation of shot probability assessment. Chen ordered. Shot probability exceeds 90% during identified optimal window, she replied with quiet confidence that seemed impossible given the circumstances. Morrison looked incredulous at her assessment. Sergeant, mathematical analysis shows conditions worse than any previous engagement we have attempted together. Mathematics provides foundation, Vasquez agreed. However, successful extreme-range engagement requires integration of mathematical analysis with environmental pattern recognition and timing intuition that exceeds computational processing. Chen watched her settle into final shooting position with movements that seemed to flow rather than mechanical positioning. Her entire approach differed from traditional sniper methodology in ways that suggested training beyond standard military doctrine. 1 minute to exposure, Morrison announced, his voice tight with tension. Wind conditions showing maximum instability. Current calculations indicate bullet deviation exceeding target dimensions at projected impact point. Chen felt his decision crystallizing despite the mathematical impossibility of success. Vasquez's previous performance had earned his trust in situations where conventional wisdom proved inadequate. However, the current shot exceeded anything they had previously attempted together. Authorization granted for engagement during next exposure window, Chen decided. Conditions acknowledged as prohibitive. Attempt authorized based on shooter assessment of feasibility. Understood, Vasquez replied, her voice carrying calm satisfaction at receiving clearance for the impossible shot. Morrison shook his head while maintaining his spotter duties. For the record, environmental conditions exceed all doctrinal parameters for engagement authorization. Record noted, Chen acknowledged, feeling the weight of responsibility for authorizing an attempt that mathematical analysis suggested was doomed to failure. Vasquez aligned her rifle with microscopic precision, her movements suggesting she perceived environmental factors invisible to instruments designed specifically for measuring ballistic conditions. Her breathing shifted into a final pattern that seemed to synchronize with atmospheric fluctuations Chen could not detect. Target exposure in 30 seconds, Morrison announced. Final environmental reading shows maximum instability across all measurement categories. Chen watched through his binoculars as Vasquez prepared for the shot with ritual precision that differed completely from any sniper methodology he had observed during his military career. Her technique seemed based on intuitive understanding rather than mechanical application of ballistic principles. 15 seconds to exposure, Morrison counted down. Wind conditions chaotic, thermal effects creating multiple atmospheric disturbance layers. Vasquez positioned her finger on the trigger, with movements so gradual they seemed like natural breathing, rather than conscious action. Her concentration had deepened into a state where she appeared completely integrated with her weapon and target environment. Target exposed, Morrison announced. Chen swung his scope toward the compound and located their target, standing in his customary position near the northwest corner of the main building. The figure gestured to unseen companions with casual movements that confirmed his confidence in his security situation. Chen waited for the distinctive crack of Vasquez's rifle that would indicate shot initiation. Seconds passed without the expected sound. He glanced toward her position, confused by the delay in an engagement she had claimed such confidence about attempting. "Time remaining in exposure window?" Chen asked quietly. 2 seconds, Morrison replied, his voice reflecting equal confusion about the delay. The target disappeared behind cover according to his established pattern, ending the exposure window without any shot attempt. Chen felt disappointed but relieved that Vasquez had apparently recognized the impossibility of the shot despite her earlier confidence. "Next exposure in 7 minutes, 40 seconds, Morrison announced. "Environmental conditions continuing to deteriorate." Chen was about to radio Vasquez for explanation of why she had not attempted the shot when Morrison suddenly grabbed his binoculars and focused intently on the target compound. "Contact down in target area," Morrison said urgently. "Individual matching target description appears to be struck by projectile impact." Chen swung his scope toward the compound, scanning for the target who should have been safely behind cover. Instead, he located a figure lying motionless on the ground near the position where their target had been standing moments before. "Confirm target elimination," Chen ordered, feeling confused about what had occurred without any shot being fired from their position. Morrison studied the scene through powerful optics designed for precise target identification. "Target confirmed eliminated. Impact location consistent with high-velocity projectile. No movement detected for past 60 seconds. Chen felt bewildered by the situation. Their target had been eliminated by what appeared to be sniper fire, yet no shot had been fired from any position he could identify. Vasquez remained in shooting position, but had not discharged her weapon during the target exposure window. "Vasquez, report on engagement status," Chen radioed. "Target neutralized," she replied calmly. "Mission objective achieved." Chen stared at her position through his binoculars, noting that her rifle remained aimed at the target area despite the engagement apparently being completed. Her posture suggested continued concentration rather than the relaxation that typically followed successful shot completion. "Confirm weapon discharge from your position," Chen ordered, trying to understand what had occurred. "Negative weapon discharge during target exposure window," Vasquez replied. "Engagement completed using alternative timing methodology." Morrison looked confused while continuing to observe the target compound through his binoculars. "Target remains down. No sign of movement. Other personnel in compound responding to casualty situation." Chen felt increasingly bewildered by a situation where their target had been eliminated without any apparent shot being fired from their observation post. Standard sniper doctrine provided no framework for understanding what had apparently occurred. "Vasquez, explain engagement methodology that achieved target elimination without weapon discharge during exposure window," Chen demanded. "Shot initiated during previous optimal environmental window," she replied. Bullet flight time calculated to achieve target impact during scheduled exposure period. Chen felt his understanding of the situation shift dramatically. Confirmed shot timing relative to target exposure. Weapon discharged 47 seconds prior to target exposure, Vasquez explained. Environmental pattern analysis allowed calculation of optimal launch timing to coordinate bullet arrival with target availability. Morrison stared at his chronometer while processing the implications of what Vasquez had described. Sergeant, are you confirming that you fired during target concealment period and calculated bullet flight to arrive during his next scheduled appearance? Affirmative, Vasquez replied. Environmental pattern recognition provided sufficient data for precise flight time calculation, coordinated with target movement schedule. Chen felt staggered by the tactical sophistication of what she had apparently achieved. Coordinating bullet flight time with target exposure required not only extraordinary marksmanship, but also environmental prediction capabilities that exceeded anything he had encountered during his military career. Morrison checked environmental monitoring data from the time period when Vasquez claimed to have fired her shot. Environmental readings from 47 seconds ago show identical instability to current conditions. Shot probability calculations remain essentially zero. Traditional ballistic analysis assumes static environmental conditions during bullet flight, Vasquez explained. Alternative methodology integrates environmental pattern changes throughout flight duration to optimize trajectory calculation. Chen realized that Vasquez had achieved something that defied not only standard doctrine, but mathematical analysis designed specifically for extreme-range shooting scenarios. Her methodology suggested training and capabilities far beyond conventional military sniper development. The compound below showed increased activity as other personnel responded to their target's elimination. Chen observed through his scope as figures moved around the casualty with obvious confusion about what had occurred. Compound personnel appear unable to identify shooting position, Morrison reported. No indication of return fire preparation or tactical response to sniper contact. The lack of response from hostile forces confirmed that Vasquez's shot had been virtually undetectable despite eliminating their primary target. Chen felt impressed by tactical execution that exceeded anything he had previously witnessed. Mission objective achieved, Chen announced over radio to their command element. Target confirmed eliminated, observation post remains uncompromised. As they prepared to withdraw from their position, Chen found himself staring at Vasquez with new respect for capabilities that transcended conventional military training. The shot she had achieved represented a level of tactical sophistication that challenged his understanding of what was possible through human skill alone. The extraction helicopter lifted off from the valley floor 2 hours after the successful mission completion, carrying Chen's team back to their forward operating base. During the flight, Chen found himself studying Vasquez with new appreciation for capabilities he was only beginning to understand. Her achievement had transcended conventional military training in ways that suggested background elements he had never fully explored. Upon landing at the base, Chen requested immediate debriefing with their intelligence officer, Major Sarah Williams, who had coordinated the mission from the Tactical Operations Center. Williams had been following their radio communications throughout the engagement and expressed curiosity about the unconventional methodology that had achieved target elimination. Sergeant Vasquez, your shot timing methodology represents techniques not covered in standard sniper training programs, Williams began during the formal debriefing session. Can you provide details about the training source for your environmental pattern recognition capabilities? Vasquez maintained her characteristic composed demeanor while considering how much information to share about her background. Previous assignment involved specialized reconnaissance training focused on environmental analysis for extreme-range engagement scenarios. Williams consulted Vasquez's personnel file, noting again the multiple redacted sections that indicated classified training programs and operational assignments. Your previous unit designation suggests involvement with experimental marksmanship development programs. Can you confirm participation in advanced ballistic calculation methodologies? Affirmative, Vasquez replied carefully. Training included integration of environmental pattern recognition with traditional ballistic analysis to enhance engagement capabilities beyond standard doctrine limitations. Chen listened with growing fascination as he learned details about Vasquez's background that explained her unconventional approaches to tactical problems. Her training had apparently involved programs designed to push human marksmanship capabilities beyond traditional mechanical limitations. Major Williams continued her questioning with obvious interest in the tactical innovations Vasquez had demonstrated. Your coordination of bullet flight time with target exposure requires environmental prediction accuracy that exceeds current technological capabilities. How did your training program achieve such precision? Environmental pattern recognition training focused on understanding atmospheric conditions as integrated systems rather than discrete variables, Vasquez explained. Human cognitive processing can identify patterns within apparent chaos that computational analysis cannot detect through sequential measurement. Morrison, who had remained quiet during most of the debriefing, finally spoke up with questions that had been troubling him since the mission. Sergeant, your environmental predictions contradicted every instrument reading we had. How did you identify conditions that our equipment couldn't measure? Environmental monitoring equipment provides accurate, discrete measurements, Vasquez acknowledged. However, integration of multiple measurements into predictive patterns requires cognitive processing that exceeds computational capabilities under certain conditions. Chen began to understand that Vasquez's training had focused on developing human capabilities that complemented rather than replaced technological analysis. Her methodology represented evolution of traditional marksmanship rather than abandonment of mathematical principles. Williams reviewed mission video recordings that had captured audio of their radio communications throughout the engagement. Your confidence level remained consistently high despite mathematical analysis indicating shot impossibility. What training elements supported such certainty under prohibitive conditions? Confidence derived from pattern recognition indicating environmental stability window availability, Vasquez replied. Training emphasized trusting cognitive processing results even when they contradicted instrumental analysis under specific circumstances. Chen realized that Vasquez's training had prepared her to make tactical decisions based on integrated analysis that exceeded traditional measurement capabilities. Her methodology represented advancement of human marksmanship potential rather than reliance on supernatural abilities. Major Williams continued exploring the implications of what Vasquez had achieved during the mission. Your shot coordination required bullet flight time calculation accurate to within seconds over a 3-second flight duration. Standard ballistic computers cannot achieve such precision under the environmental conditions you encountered. Ballistic computers process variables sequentially using discrete measurements, Vasquez explained. Human pattern recognition processes multiple variables simultaneously as integrated systems, allowing identification of brief stability windows within apparent environmental chaos. Morrison nodded slowly as he began to understand the theoretical foundation behind Vasquez's unconventional methodology. So you're saying human intuition can sometimes exceed computational analysis for specific types of complex problems? Human cognitive processing offers advantages for pattern recognition problems involving multiple interrelated variables changing simultaneously, Vasquez confirmed. Training developed capabilities to apply this advantage to extreme-range marksmanship challenges. Chen felt impressed by the sophistication of training programs that had developed such advanced human capabilities. Vasquez's background suggested military research into expanding soldier effectiveness beyond traditional technological limitations. Williams explored the broader implications of what the mission had demonstrated. Your techniques suggest potential applications for other extreme-range scenarios, where traditional methods prove inadequate. Would such methodology be teachable to other qualified personnel? Training requires specific cognitive aptitude characteristics, Vasquez replied cautiously. Not all personnel possess pattern recognition capabilities necessary for reliable application under tactical conditions. Chen understood that Vasquez's abilities resulted from combination of natural aptitude and specialized training rather than techniques that could be universally applied. Her capabilities represented optimization of specific human potential rather than generally applicable methodology. The debriefing continued for another hour as Williams explored various aspects of the mission and its tactical implications. Chen found himself gaining deeper appreciation for the complexity of what Vasquez had achieved and the training programs that had made such capabilities possible. Following the formal debriefing, Chen requested private conversation with Vasquez to better understand her background and capabilities. They walked to the base perimeter where they could speak without interruption from other personnel. Elena, I've been leading sniper teams for years, but I've never encountered anything like what you achieved today, Chen began. Your previous unit record suggests training programs I'm not familiar with. Can you help me understand what kind of preparation made that shot possible? Vasquez considered her response carefully, weighing security requirements against her respect for Chen's leadership and tactical competence. My previous assignment involved developmental programs exploring human potential optimization for extreme military scenarios. The training focused on expanding cognitive capabilities beyond traditional limitations. Chen felt curious about programs that could produce such advanced capabilities in military personnel. Was this part of special operations development or something more experimental? The program explored integration of human intuitive processing with technological analysis to enhance battlefield effectiveness, Vasquez explained. Research indicated that certain cognitive capabilities could exceed technological analysis under specific conditions. Chen began to understand that Vasquez represented product of advanced military research into human potential optimization. Her training had focused on developing capabilities that complemented technology rather than replacing it entirely. How many personnel went through similar training programs? Chen asked. Limited numbers, Vasquez replied. The training required specific aptitude characteristics and intensive development periods that made broad application impractical for general military personnel. Chen realized that Vasquez's capabilities made her exceptionally valuable for tactical scenarios that exceeded conventional solution methods. Her training represented significant military investment in developing enhanced human capabilities. Over the following days, Chen observed Vasquez interacting with other personnel on the base and noted how she applied her analytical capabilities to various tactical problems beyond marksmanship. Her environmental awareness and pattern recognition abilities enhanced her effectiveness across multiple military specialties. During subsequent missions, Chen began incorporating Vasquez's unconventional assessment methods into their team's tactical planning process. Her ability to identify opportunities that instrumental analysis missed proved valuable for various operational challenges. Morrison also began adapting his spotter techniques to better support Vasquez's methodology. Rather than relying exclusively on computational analysis, he learned to integrate environmental observations that supported her pattern recognition capabilities. The success of their mission attracted attention from higher headquarters, leading to requests for detailed tactical reports on the engagement methodology. Chen found himself explaining Vasquez's techniques to senior officers who expressed interest in broader application of her capabilities. Several weeks later, Chen received notification that Vasquez had been selected for reassignment to an advanced tactical development unit. The orders came with commendations for her exceptional performance and contribution to mission success under challenging conditions. During their final mission together, Chen reflected on how much he had learned from working with someone whose capabilities exceeded traditional training boundaries. Vasquez had demonstrated that human potential could be developed beyond conventional limitations through appropriate training and application. The night before her departure, Vasquez approached Chen with uncharacteristic openness about her background and future assignments. Marcus, working with your team provided valuable experience in applying advanced techniques under realistic field conditions. Your leadership supported optimal performance during challenging tactical scenarios. Chen felt honored by her assessment and curious about her future assignments. Where will your capabilities be most effectively utilized next? Advanced tactical development programs continue exploring human potential optimization for extreme military scenarios, she replied. Training programs are expanding to develop similar capabilities in additional qualified personnel. Chen understood that Vasquez's reassignment would contribute to broader military advancement in human capability development. Her experiences with their team would inform training programs designed to enhance other soldiers' effectiveness. On her departure day, Chen watched the helicopter lift off, carrying Vasquez to her new assignment. He felt grateful for having witnessed capabilities that challenged his understanding of human potential and military effectiveness. Morrison approached as they watched the aircraft disappear over the horizon. Think we'll encounter anyone else with abilities like hers? Chen considered the question while reflecting on their extraordinary experiences working with Vasquez. If her training programs continue developing, we might see more personnel with enhanced capabilities in future assignments. The base continued its operational routine after Vasquez's departure, but Chen found himself applying lessons learned from her methodology to various tactical challenges. Her approach to environmental analysis and pattern recognition provided valuable enhancement to traditional military planning processes. Several months later, Chen received reports that similar advanced marksmanship achievements were occurring in other theaters of operation. The reports suggested that training programs like those that had developed Vasquez's capabilities were producing additional personnel with extraordinary tactical effectiveness. Chen realized that he had witnessed early development of military capabilities that would likely become more common as training programs advanced. Vasquez had represented the future of human potential optimization in military applications. During quiet moments, Chen sometimes recalled the impossible shot that had redefined his understanding of what human skill could achieve under extreme conditions. The memory served as a reminder that military effectiveness could advance beyond traditional boundaries through appropriate development of human capabilities. The mission remained classified in official records, but Chen knew that the tactical innovations demonstrated during that engagement would influence military training and doctrine development for years to come. Vasquez's achievement had proven that human potential could exceed traditional limitations when properly developed and applied. Years later, Chen continued leading sniper teams with enhanced appreciation for the possibility that human capabilities could transcend conventional boundaries under appropriate conditions. His experience with Vasquez had demonstrated that military effectiveness could advance through optimization of human potential rather than reliance solely on technological advancement. The impossible shot had become possible through integration of human intuitive processing with traditional military training, proving that the future of battlefield effectiveness might depend as much on developing human capabilities as on technological innovation. Chen carried that lesson throughout his continuing military career, always watching for personnel who might possess similar potential for extraordinary achievement.